And there we go. Now we have audio.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, actually, I was able to hear the whole time. It was just for some reason, the audio was not going over the broadcast. And I don't know what I did, but apparently I did something that, so it wasn't, OBS was not picking up any of my audio. It said the device didn't even exist.
Well.
All right. Well, for everyone out there on Twitch, sorry for that little technical difficulties there. I don't know. I'm still trying to get my machine actually set and not make any changes to it. But apparently I don't have that yet. It's so fun working with technology. So, all right. So welcome everyone. So today we're continuing our Code PaLOUsa Speaker Series. I'm actually really thrilled to have Johnie Karr on today. So Johnie actually works on my team. So kind of fun to have someone who you work with speaking at your conference. So this is gonna be a lot of fun. Just a couple of programming notes. So I've been showing the schedule. Actually, I should have got it prepped, but so every Tuesday and Thursday through Code PaLOUsa, we'll be having these. Actually, we are adding some additional times. The awesome part was so many speakers wanted to be a part of this, and I have 103 speakers, so there's a lot to try to get through. So we're adding some additional times, and so I will probably tonight I will send out updates on the Code PaLOUsa website with all the additional times and when people will be when those interviews will be happening. But they will not be. I will say they will not be happening during our normal stream times because I am trying to write some code sometime, right? And not turn into an interview show. Although the interview part's been kind of fun. We've done 2 of these so far, and I've actually had a lot of fun with these. So with that, I'm going to turn my attention to Johnie. Like I said, Johnie, I've mentioned this before. This will be Johnny's first time speaking at a conference. He actually was supposed to speak back in April, but unfortunately, at IndieConf. But Indie.Code. Indie.Code. I knew that because I speak at the whole series, and I should have known that better. He was supposed to speak at IndieCode, but of course that got canceled due to the pandemic, which Johnie starts, and that way Johnie starts seeing how I feel when all my conferences get canceled. You got to see it firsthand. So Johnie, just tell us, who are you, right? What makes Johnie go?
Wow, that is a
big question to start it off with.
Big question. I know you said you were going to be interviewing me, but didn't know it was a job interview.
It's not. No. And let me know, no one's allowed to take Johnie. I don't.
So let's see. I've been a software developer for 12 years. Man, it's been a long time. I recognize I'm still fairly young in the field, but 12 years is I've reached the decade mark.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I've been a senior software engineer at Scholar now for 3 years this month, actually. The 24th will be 3 years. And let's see. I just enjoy writing code. That's what makes me go. People ask my wife, what does Johnie do to relieve stress? What are his hobbies? Writing code. Well, what's he do for his day job? Writes code. So, yeah, it's code makes me go.
I know that feeling well. It's funny. I always have that same problem, and of course, I know Johnie a whole lot better than I know most people I've been friends with for a long time, just because I say I do work or I don't work for Johnie, although I think sometimes I feel that way. But Johnie works for me, so I get to have lots of conversations with Johnie. But no, I always have the hard time when people ask, well, what do you do for fun? I'm like, I write code.
Yeah.
No. When you're having fun, I'm like, I write code. That's what I like to do, right? It's
yeah. Don't tell anyone. We do it for free.
I try not to, but
yeah.
So, but then I mean, so what do you do? I mean, it's kind of funny because I know what you do. But so, I mean, what do you do for ScholarX? I mean, obviously you're a senior developer. What does that mean for you?
For me, yeah. So I own all of the editorial tools. So we have authors, both in-house and externally, that create our content for us. So I own the tools that they use to do that. I pretty much own the delivery mechanisms of that content to our front end applications, to our mobile applications, to those guys. So yeah, so my day to day is either building out new products or importing content that can't be done through the tools that we have, or building tools to support our content team or our developers. Um, so so yeah, I know you said a lot of times, Chad, you don't like full stack developers, but that's basically what I do. I have to delve into all of it, front end, back end, um, uh, managing the content directly, or on the SQL side of things. I assist our DevOps guy with any data manipulation scripts that we have to run from time to time. Yeah.
Oh, now it's not that I don't like full stack developers. It's not. It's my argument is that there's a difference between someone who develops a back end and someone who develops a front end. There's different skill sets, and it's not to say people can't do it. Now, I know plenty of people who actually do a really good job of it, but most people, in my mind, excel at one side or the other, right?
Yeah.
And prime example, you look at our team. I mean, you're definitely one of our API stars. And we got Brian on our team who excels at writing those front ends, right? And and of course the whole joke with Brian for the of course now we're talking about inside baseball here, right? But Brian's the joke is that he gets everything done before we even think about it.
Yeah.
And usually on the API side, we all of a sudden got to have to get an API that works for what he's already built on the front end. But,
there's lots of catch up there.
And then sure enough, just to catch everyone up, because obviously, I've talked about ScholarX a little bit before, although not too much on the stream. But so we build learning platforms for medical students. I should say really not just medical students, although right now that's our primary focus. But we are trying to build ourselves out as a lifelong learning for medical, whether you're a student or you've been a doctor. So hence the content becomes extremely important. All right.
Yeah. And Chad, we it's neat because when I started at Scholar, as far as I knew, most or all of our students were medical students. But now we're seeing dental students come on board and even veterinary students.
Yeah.
Which is really neat to see. Once we've launched our curriculum project, now we see this broader audience being able to take advantage of the knowledge that we're putting out there. It's really neat to see.
And it's always fun when I hear the sales guys. So, yeah, today we're talking such and such veterinary school. And I'm like, who? Okay. That doesn't sound like what we're actually doing for the most part, but the cool part is what we've been building allows us to do that, right? And which I think the lesson learned, is making sure your platform is flexible enough to make changes like that. Not keyhole yourself into it. I mean, we've keyholed ourselves into medical, because guess what? Our CEO is a medical doctor. Although I think you give him enough thought, he will start doing other things in medical, just because he does. He definitely does not like keeping idle.
Yes.
And of course, we joke that our VP, his job is to keep the CEO busy so that we have time to keep up with what CEO's already given us to do. So I'm curious. It's funny you say, well, this isn't like a job interview, but so a job interview question that I'll have for you, right? And this actually should be an interesting question for you, because you have one around your house. So how would you describe your job to a 4-year-old? Or how do you describe your job to your, I can't remember actually how old Matthias is, but he's around 4.
He's 4.
Yeah.
He is 4.
So how do you describe your job to your 4-year-old?
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. So he was actually watching a show um, on PBS just the other day, and they were talking about uh, programming on that show. It was really neat. They were talking about, we talk to computers in ones and zeros, and so if you were going to, instruct this person to walk across the room and then turn and then walk back, how would you do that as if you were writing a program, you're building a program for a computer. And so he got to watch them do that, and I won't take the time to explain it, but then I got to say, that's what I do every day. I tell computers what to do. So that's how I explain it to him is at the highest level, I get to tell computers what to do.
Oh, that's cool. It's also cool that PBS was actually having, showing how programming works. It's I always joke, because I've been doing this for so long, but I always tell people, oh yeah, I started writing programs when I was 7. And some of the younger folks who I've managed, they're like, why did you start so late? I'm like, yeah, well that was 1977. Okay, so there's a little bit of a difference here, right?
Yeah.
Most people didn't even know what a computer looked like, near unless had a computer at home.
Right.
But,
right.
It is cool to see that it's being more generalized, and getting it more exposed. Especially, in the United States we have a problem. We don't have enough computer folks.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is why the boot camps and everything have been so popular. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy to me, because it always seems like every time that I need someone, I get so many resumes.
Yeah.
But although I think sometimes you're getting the same resume over and over, though. But
mm-hmm.
So how did you get your start in your career?
Well, so my journey is really interesting. I'm self-taught in a lot of ways. I started going to college after I started my career, so I've been, I didn't start programming at 7, but I was in high school, 16 or 17 years old, and this was before Bible.com, before YouVersion, right? Before there were any Bibles online, So this is circa 1990s, 2000, to put things in reference. And I always, at that point in my life, it was always a desire of mine to read the Bible on a regular basis, but I never was able to establish that habit. So I thought, I had this grand idea. If I built a website and that website is the Bible, then I have to type out the Bible. In order for me to type it out, I have to read it. So that was the idea. So that's how I got started. I went to GeoCities and created a brand new webpage on GeoCities, right? And links to it from my MySpace page, right? And just got started with basic HTML there, and then around the time CSS was becoming a thing, styling was always kind of there in HTML, but this idea of a separate CSS file was kind of emerging, and I started learning about that, and then this thing called JavaScript, right? You go to different websites, and the mouse would all of a sudden have a trail, or text would grow and shrink and flip around, and some cool stuff, right? That's all you could do with JavaScript back then. That's all people did. And so that is really cool. So I want to start learning how to do that. And what was nice back then, right? We didn't have SPA frameworks back then. So you go to any website, you want to learn how they did something, you right click on the page and you view source. And so that's how I started learning JavaScript, right? and introducing JavaScript into my website and just learning that. And I thought, man, I'm creating a static HTML page for every single, chapter and book and all this stuff. So I need to be database driven. And so okay, well, I got to learn how to do databases. But JavaScript and HTML can't talk to a database. So I have to learn server side. So I had to learn PHP and MySQL because my budget was zero at the time, right? And so then I started dabbling in that, and then I started building websites for people. But despite my family's urging me to go to college for computer science, I went to college to be a chef. So I spent a year at culinary art school, and then I realized very expensively, this is not something I like doing. So I dropped out after 1 year of college and just worked in factories, kind of did some computer stuff on the side however I could. My desire was always to be in tech, to be a programmer. And then my career actually started taking off when I got a job as a cable technician for the cable company. And they put me through a program called Leadership Academy. I was one of the elite techs, and so they put me through this program. And they recognized that I had this desire to do tech stuff, to build applications, and I had a skill set there. And there was also, much like you always get with large corporations, there was this disconnect, right, between the field operations department and IT. And so the field operations department would send a request to IT for whatever program they needed, and it just sat there, and nothing ever got done with it. And so you put on top of that the field technicians, we didn't have laptops, right? We had BlackBerries. Before the BlackBerries, we actually just had a pager. That's all we had. But then we got BlackBerries, and we never did get computers. So they created this role for me. They called it communication specialist. And so in that role, basically 80% of my job was building BlackBerry-friendly applications so that our technicians had the tools that they needed when they were out on job sites. So I was doing that. This was 2007 when I took on this role. And so this was before, what we call spas today and stuff, but I built one in IE6 because that was what we used. That was our corporate browser, IE6. So I built a spa, right? So I took that role. The only way that IT allowed that role to happen was I had to work under the oh, good grief. I had to work under the kind of permission of the senior software engineer there. So anything I wanted to do, I had to run by him.
Right.
So they hired me and they said, okay, what do you need? And I said, I need a box with Linux on it so I can do PHP and MySQL. So they took it up to him and he said, no, he'll do classic ASP and he'll work on SQL Server 2000. And so I had to learn classic ASP kind of overnight, and the differences between MySQL and SQL Server 2000. And then this thing called jQuery was coming out, and it's like, man, I really want to use jQuery. This thing's awesome. So I was, can I use jQuery? Nope, you can't use jQuery. So, which was actually turned out, I believe he did it out of spite, but it actually turned out to be a great thing because it forced me to really learn JavaScript.
You can get all the bad habits from jQuery.
That's right. So I was building, so keep in mind, so I built this spa application without any libraries. I did all in vanilla JS, right? So I was doing all the XHR requests, like all that stuff I was doing by hand, and it was working in IE6, which I didn't realize was such a big feat until I actually got promoted into IT. And my manager made such a big deal out of the fact that I was able to do that. Yeah, so then, a few years later, now 2000, I want to say 2008 or so, it was around the Great Recession, my manager calls me into his office, and my group, they've already been laying people off, and my manager calls me in his office. So I'm expecting that pink slip, but he says, starting Monday, you report to IT. And so, yeah, I went, and then I was an official software engineer. Started as a junior software engineer out there. So, so that's the long story of how my career got started. And I've been building enterprise applications since then.
That's really cool. It's you're getting kudos on the chat for all that.
Oh wow!
And sure enough, it's not to say I definitely don't look down to folks who did it the traditional way, went to school and then took a job right out of school. But I definitely really appreciate the folks, and maybe because I definitely was non-traditional. I definitely appreciate folks who came in in an untraditional path into software development. Usually gets different views on things, right? Because you maybe didn't know the right way of doing things, but you knew how to get it done, right?
Yep.
And and I argue that now even today as I architect solutions, I might not necessarily know all. I've been doing it for a long time. I quote unquote know the right way, but maybe I find it gets the right way. But I didn't go to school to learn how to do this. I just do it, right?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate other folks who have that mentality.
Yeah.
Especially because it's hard, right, to done it that way. Industry's definitely got a lot better, and even in the time you've been in. But I remember the days when we couldn't hire someone like you. It doesn't have a degree, So, of course, I remember having those arguments. I'm like, I don't have a degree. Yeah, but right. You're different. And I'm like, well, I wasn't 10 years ago, right? We're 20 years now, and yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's sad to me that the industry still puts such weight on a degree. That was actually a blocker for me mentally. Though I had always hesitated. I had been encouraged by folks throughout my early life, to apply for entry level programming jobs and things. But I never did because I didn't have that degree. And in my mind, if you don't have a computer science degree, you can't be a programmer, right? And it wasn't until I actually, got into that quasi role when I realized that half the people around me that are programmers either don't have a degree, or they also spend half their time on Google, learning how to do this thing, right? And so it wasn't until I actually got into the field that I realized I could have gotten into it years earlier, and it took me a long time. It's kind of an interesting thing, but it took me, like, I was resentful of that for a while.
Sure.
Because I was not able to do what I loved because, going to school wasn't an option for me, right? I couldn't afford it. And so, so it was either work now or go to school and starve. And, and so in my mind, since I have to choose working, I can't choose going to school. Therefore, I can never be a programmer. So it actually took a little bit of time to get over that hurt.
Sure. And it's a problem we have in this industry, right?
Yeah.
And usually I hear this talk more when we talk about diversity. I mean, one of the reasons why we have a lack of diversity is because people, I can't apply because of this. I can't apply because of that. And the sad part is most of the actual hiring managers could care less about those requirements. it's HR who sticks those in front of us, right? You know, I've had plenty of that. You know, over my career,
corporate mindset that needs to change. Yeah.
You know, over my career, I've hired probably over 100 people, and I think most of them, you know, I mean, you know, it was. I would submit the job requirement like, well, you got to have, you know, you got to require X number of years or, you know, and degree. And I'm like, I don't care if they have a degree. I care if they can write a program, right?
Right.
And like I say, I mean, we definitely, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we have problems getting women in the industry. Because, and the funny thing is, you know, I mean, now I'm definitely sky-sorting. I won't go too far on this, but, you know, when men and women look at a job posting, you know, a man sees, okay, all these requirements that I don't have, well, I'm going to apply for it, right? A woman looks at it more rationally and says, well, no, it says I need to have these, so I'm not going to apply. So that, you know, we have, you know, that causes a lot of problems, you know. And luckily, part of the industry is looking how to write those better, you know, and write job descriptions actually are what you know what they're looking for. You and I actually work for someone who's really been fighting for that. You know, it's how I actually got to know him first was talking about job descriptions. That was actually, I think, the first discussion he and I had well before I came to work here. But like I say, I could go on for because I mean, you know, this is part of what I do, right? Is trying to get more people in the industry, you know, and more non-traditionals.
Right. Yeah, it's a big subject.
Yeah.
It's a necessary conversation too. It needs to be had. We need to have more inclusion and diversity in the field, and you know, we need those barriers to be broke down.
Yeah, because I always remind people, you know, we can't be all teams of, you know, mid 40-year-olds, you know, white guys, because guess what? The applications we're writing for are not for all mid 40-year-old white guys, right? You know, it's of course this is, you know, someone quickly approaching his 50s, you know, talking to someone in his lower 40s, both of us white, but still, I mean, there's an understanding that you know, we need, you know, you need that diversity, you know, and it's important. No, it's cool. So one thing I did forget to ask early on, and I am still trying to figure out this whole interview. I've tons of interviews, but I'm trying to do this a little bit different than a normal job interview. But so the pandemic, I mean, how has that affected you? I mean, you know, have you been greatly affected by coronavirus, or has it just been life as normal?
It's been largely life as normal.
Yeah.
And so part of that, you know, a few weeks before things started to kind of open back up, there was a meme that went around, and it said something to the effect of, you know, when you learn that your normal life is called quarantine, you know, and that really hit home with me, because I was like, you know, that's really, I told my wife, I said, that really is how I feel. Like, I don't feel like there's been a lot of change, you know. And she made a good point, and she said that that I don't process feelings, and because I don't process feelings, I don't feel the differences, right? Like, my feelings don't become aware to me until they become a problem, right? So when stress starts building up and I get, you know, feel the blood pressure boiling, you know, that sort of thing. But one of my downsides is I'm not very aware of what I'm feeling at any given moment. And so she pointed that out. So it's kind of an interesting and deeper question than you might have thought for me, because on the one hand, I didn't feel like it affected me a whole lot, but on the other hand, I'm sure it did. Like, I think if I look back retrospectively, I probably did have a shorter temper, had a shorter fuse. You know, Matthias, my 4-year-old, you know, pushing buttons easier. You know, so that's a really interesting question.
Well, I think and it's something I've been talking about a lot, is that, you know, and I didn't start this quote or this talk, but, you know, quarantine work is not the same thing as remote work. And those who don't follow me very much, I mean, so our company is 100% remote. we don't even have an office, so it's so it's not like not like this was a change per se for us on that, but there's still a difference, right? Which and I know you're a proponent for work from home, because I know that's one of the talk proposals you've done. You didn't propose it at Code PaLOusa here, but I know you've talked about doing that type of talk. But sure enough, I mean, this is not the same thing, right? It's right. There's a different thing, And I talk about. It's funny when I talk to people who don't know me, and it's like and they ask a similar question, like, yeah, well, honestly, this doesn't really change much, except, right? And there's several different buts, right? I mean, obviously, I'm not traveling right now, which I normally travel twice a month. It's my daughter's home 100% of the time, which I love her to death, but oh my God, please go away. Of course, my daughter's 23, right? So it's different. Actually, the funny part about having my daughter home is not that not the difference with her being home. It's that she gets the dog riled up more often. Because normally, he just sits right here at my side all day long, and he's chill all day. But now that she's home, he's got someone to play with, and so he's more wound up all throughout the day. It's funny. He actually his days have switched. It used to be he was calm all day long, and at night he would rile up because now my wife and I had time to spend with him. Now it's the other way around. And I'm like, I need it the other way. I need it when I'm not working. For you to be more active.
Yeah.
Which is why my office door almost is closed the whole day now. But, cool. So, talking about Code PaLOusa, let's talk about, so your presentation, which I forgot the title of it, but I know it's about user authentication stories.
Mm-hmm.
And, which, admittedly, for me, was very easy to pick because, I knew where you were basing off of, but, so very well, talk about what is your goal with that talk?
Yeah, so my goal, and what's nice about this talk is it's not a very developer centric talk, right? It's appropriate for developers. It's just as appropriate for business owners or project owners, business analysts. Like it's very kind of high level. There's some code demos in there, but for the most part, it's very high level. And one of the things that I want to do is change the way that we build our applications and change the way we think about authentication around that. We have practices in place over the last 30, 40 years in the software world that have tried to encourage people to do better passwords, but all it's done is pushing people to use bad passwords and bad password practices. So rather than trying to change user behavior, because we know that has failed miserably as an experiment, and some of the practices to change user behavior is even being rolled back in the security sector, right? Like it is no longer a recommendation to force password reset, password expirations, right? That is considered a bad practice now. So things like that. And so rather than trying to change the user behavior so that they do things better, I think it's time that we just address the fact that all of us have bad tendencies when it comes to the way we handle our passwords. And so let's change the way that we build our applications so that our users are safer. Like we just help them be safer from our end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also a shift in thinking from the way of, okay, we're going to build our application out so that we can never be hacked. Well, what if instead of focusing on that, what if we start from scratch with the assumption that one day our data will be breached? So if we start with that assumption, instead of with the assumption that we can build to prevent it, like still take all the necessary precautions, still do everything right. But let's start with the assumption that one day there will be a bad actor in my data center. So what can I do then to protect my end users, right? So if we can start with that assumption, and we can start, and we can also at the same time change our perspective of, instead of trying to encourage um, better practices from the user, let's focus on enforcing better practices in our application, or a better flow of things, to help protect the user. Um, then we ultimately have not only a safer environment for our user in our context, in the context of our application, but some of these things that we'll talk about will also help make the user safer in other areas of their software realm.
No, that sounds. I mean, that sounds like really good talk. You know, it's you know, I think, and the great part is that you know you're building it so it's not just developers, it's not just business analysts, it's not just PMs. Because you know, normally what I find the problem is I think it will help developers understand how to explain it to project managers. Because what I've seen, that has been like the biggest stumbling block. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I know, you know, especially when I was running teams out at Fort Knox, where I had a lot of people, I mean, I had multiple teams that worked for me. And one of the biggest complaints I would hear from my developers was, well, you know, the project managers don't know, you know, how my job is, how, you know, what I mean when I say this, right? And of course, I always throw it back and like, what do you understand how to run a project or how to write requirements and such? Well, no, that's not my job. Well, okay. But it really was more of a problem of each other understanding, you know, simple concepts, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, user authentication is not a simple complex or simple concept, but it doesn't have to be as hard as sometimes we make it out to be.
Right.
So sometimes the you know, perfect example, the whole, you know, I mean, for years the recommendation was, you know, change your password every so often, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know at the Army, we were changing our password every 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'll let you say. So why is that bad recommendation? I know why it's
So,
bad. I know why it's a bad
yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah. So you want me to tell you why it's bad?
Yeah.
So it's a bad recommendation because it turns out that people are notoriously bad for creating and memorizing complex passwords. We can't do it, right? Our minds only have so much space for memorization of complex things, and we just don't have a mechanism to create good passwords in our mind. Okay, so you can use Password Manager and create it there, and that would be a whole separate thing. All right, so why specifically is it bad to force people to change their passwords? We already know that people are going to create a password, and I'm taking in general. If you use a password manager, you're excluded from this
Mhm.
bucket. But in general, people are going to create the minimal password that they can to pass your arbitrary rules of requirements. And then 6 months later, you're going to say that password is no longer valid. So you have to create a new password. Well, I've just spent the last 6 months using the password that you made me create. I don't want to remember a new one, but I can remember that same password with the number 1 at the end.
Yep.
And then in another 6 months, I can remember that same password with the number 2 at the end and the number 3 at the end. When I worked at that cable company, we had to change our password every 30 days. And we had 4 or 5 different systems. And this is way back, you know, before Active Directory kind of was over everything, right? So we had a lot of systems that were outside the realm of Active Directory, and there's probably a better way of saying that. So what I figured out, and we had so you had to create a password every 30 days, and it couldn't be one that you've used in the last 10 times, right? So we kept your password, we kept your last 10 entries. So I'm clever, right? So every 30 days, my 2 minutes that morning was change the password, 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 do it 10 times, so then I can change it back to what it was originally. So my password was always the same,
Right.
right?
My clever part was, I had a phrase. It was my password, and I was changing mine every month, and the last digit or the last 2 digits was the month number.
Yeah.
So password 1, password 2. For February it's password 2. For March it's password 3. Which was really easy to remember because I knew what month it was.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I just took it a step further. I come in and sit down on my computer. The prompt comes up. You must change your password. Of course, that only happens once, but I can immediately log out and click the forgot password button, and then just reset it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I can do it to what it was originally. So there's also problems with that, right? You can force people to change their passwords, but that only is effective if you're actually storing previous passwords so that you can compare it. And so now think about if your data gets hacked, if your database gets breached, right? Not only are you revealing one password for that user, you're revealing 10 or however many that you want to keep them prepared. Whatever that distance is, right? So so it's just a really bad idea to force people to change their passwords. And even those password strength indicators, excuse me, many of those password strength indicators, we can create a really bad password and still meet those requirements.
Oh yeah, sure. I've done it.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I'll show in my talk is eliminate those altogether. We don't want password strength indicators. We don't want arbitrary rules, right? Special characters, numbers, right? We don't want any of that because it doesn't actually help, right? We know that building entropy and building complexity into passwords is good, but the mechanisms that we are using commonly today don't encourage people to do that. It encourages people to find the simplest route to get to that point. So we'll talk about ways that you can, rather than thinking about the strength of the password, let's think about how can we determine its eligibility into our system, not by its strength, but based on how easy it is to crack, or how long will it take to crack that password, as well as is that password found in a known data breach, and is it on a known password list. So we have mechanisms for that. So those are the demos that we'll go into in the talk.
That's cool. And going back to my point of making simple things complex. That was the whole change your password every so many days and everything. That was making something very simple, a simple problem, very complex.
Yes.
It really added a lot of stress to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like I said, I remember when the Army rolled all that out, and we had to change your password so often, and it was. I remember I think we had 15 characters, 2 specials, 2 uppers, 2 lowers, 2 digits. And and again the constant changing. I think it was not the last 10 passwords. And so sure enough, like I said, I changed mine every month just to make it a little bit easier on me. But I knew plenty of people who every time that came up, right, they were so they're hesitant to change their passwords. Oh, now I got to remember something completely different. And so that's when I was like, create a sequence. It makes it so much simpler.
Right. And so here's what happens is when you do that, when you combine very good complexity rules with you have to change your password every so often. Now remember, we can't remember those things. And most people have an aversion to password managers. I can't tell you, I've set a password manager up on my wife's computer, and I still end up having all her passwords in mind, right? Because it's just a hard concept for people to grasp, as easy as they are, right? And but especially back then, back in the day when password managers really weren't a thing. So what happens is you mix a very high level of complexity and entropy with change your password every so often. So now we're not just getting into, okay, I finally have memorized this one. Now you're making me change it.
Hmm.
Well, what you get into is now you're only solving for virtual hacking attempts, right? You're not going to solve for the person that gets access to your computer physically. Because when they open, if it's a laptop, they open up the lid, what's going to be right there next to the camera, right? A post-it note with the password, right? Or they get access to your office and they open the drawer and find your password book. Remember those old password
Oh, yeah.
books
Oh,
where you
yeah.
write down your password, right? Um, so um, yeah, so we just got to change the way we think about user security. And I'm not talking anything about OAuth and SAML and those things. Those are good things. I'm not talking anything about those. I'm just talking about the policies around the password
Hmm.
requirements,
Oh, yeah.
as well as we'll talk about how to store them properly.
Yeah, like I said, it's I'm glad to see the industry is definitely improving on passwords, but we still got a long ways to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious. So now this is not your first time public speaking, but this is the first time you're speaking at a conference. So I
Yes.
mean, what have you been doing to prep for that? What's that been like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So for Code PaLOusa, this talk is already done because I had to prepare it for IndyCode. And you mentioned for IndyCode, I was going to do two talks there, and I was partway through the other one, but this one I had finished, and so so my preparation, it took me a while to get started because I felt like I didn't know where to start, and part of that, I know I'm kind of sidetracking here, but I'll get back around to it. So part of that is, so you mentioned this is not my first time public speaking. I really enjoy public speaking, but my experience in the past has been preaching. And the way that I deliver a sermon is I spend time, researching, and then I write up basically a speech, and then I rehearse it to death until it's memorized, and I can get up and present, this sermon without any notes or anything. And I think it was you that pointed out to me that that's actually an anti-pattern for presenting. And once you told me that, and my wife is a speechwriter by trade, and I mentioned that to her, and she's like, "Well, he's right." So I was like, "Well, why didn't you ever tell me that, right? That I'm supposed to just prepare notes and and go off that. I thought my notes were supposed to be a script. Um, but so once I understood that, then I was able to sit down and just open PowerPoint and just build out um, a slide deck and use that slide deck as my bullet points.
Hmm.
Because before, what I would do is I would create the sermon and then I would create the PowerPoint to supplement that. And so it was a reverse of thinking. And once I had that down, then it was just, okay, I have this knowledge. So let's put together the PowerPoint with the bullet points. These are the things I want to cover. Fact checking just to make sure, because I'm not a CS major. So, imposter syndrome is a big deal for me. So fact check everything, make sure I'm, using the right terminology and all that. Uh, and, uh, and which is, that's coincidentally one of the reasons it has taken me so long to try to get into speaking at conferences. I've always wanted to, but then I'm that bugger imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, yeah. So just fact checking everything, um, and then just doing run throughs of it a few times to make sure that I'm uh, able to come in under the hour mark. And Yeah, I mean that's not a very good or eloquent answer, but
Oh,
it's what I've got for you.
yeah, no, it's. Um, I don't think there is an eloquent. Well, I'm sure I know a couple of people who probably are very eloquent in the way how they develop their talks. Uh, but I think for most of us, it is more of a crude process that comes together. It's funny you were talking about how you already had one of your talks ready for Indie Code, and you were working on the second one. Um, I didn't have either of my talks ready for Indie Code when it got canceled. I now I was working on one, but only because that was a collaboration. I was actually doing it with someone else, and so
Yeah.
I needed more time to prep for that one. Difference though is again I usually present like at least twice a month, and so it happened to be the two talks I was given Indie Code. One was a brand new talk, and the other one needed to be completely rewritten, and so I just hadn't got around to it.
Yeah.
But and then when I got canceled, I was upset that one got canceled. More than anything, I mean, one, like I said, I've done that whole series except for I did do Detroit Code when they did it up there, which didn't work out very well, which I don't do anymore. But Indie Code, I hadn't been it yet because it usually conflicts with another conference. And this year, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do Indie Code this year, and or no, both even the one I got conflicted with got canceled also. So it's and not like I picked the wrong one, But
Yeah.
it was upsetting because of I really wanted to do that collaboration talk because it would be me and a Google person, comparing Azure to GCP.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so that was gonna be a lot of fun, right? And the two of us have, we always joke around about which is better when both of us know that they're both just about as good. There's a reason why you use one or the other.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be a fun talk, right? And
Yeah.
but I have to get you back on, not for a full interview, but afterwards, after you've done the talk, and see what what your thoughts were afterwards.
Yeah.
Because it's always one to see do you still have the desire to speak again. Although I'll throw caution. I mean, this is gonna be different because it's virtual, right? It's
Yeah.
I have not spoken virtually yet. I will be soon, and I gotta admit I'm a little bit apprehensive because I'm like, I won't be able to hear the audience. I won't be able to. It's different looking like a Zoom window, seeing little pictures of people, and being right there and scanning the audience and seeing people nod their heads or oh my god, what did he say? Or because you can riff off of those visual clues, if you get the ingredients and okay, go on to the next topic, or if you're getting the oh my god, what is he saying? It's like rethink it real quickly in my head.
Yeah.
But on the chat, someone's like, he'll send a bobblehead, put on my head, put on my desk. that actually probably could help a little bit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's funny. We were on a conference call earlier today, and one of the people was presenting, or he was showing his screen, and then he stopped showing his screen, but he's still showing his screen, but he ended up showing Teams.
Yep.
And there was that delay, and it was really throwing me off. And it's funny because I'm used to that because like on the side monitor I have Stream Manager showing, which is showing the live view but there's a couple second delay. Which is why I don't look very often at that screen. That's my what's going on screen. But so it is different to see that. But I'll be curious what your thoughts were afterwards. Of course, you've been to Code PaLOusa before, but you have this will be your first time speaking at it, so it's
right. Yeah, and I have to say, being at Code PaLOusa last year is really what kind of jump started, gave me that kind of kick to get started. Um, uh, for one, you've helped me through my abstract process and helped me in thinking about how I write those and present those. And then, um, but one thing that Code Palooza really did for me, the only other conference I've ever been to was VS Live,
Mhm.
and VS Live is big name speakers the whole time, right? Um, or maybe people I haven't heard of, but they have lots of letters after their name,
Right, right.
um, this guy at Microsoft or whatever, right? Um, so one thing that being at Code Palooza did for me was recognize that you don't have to be an expert in something to talk about it, right? You just have to be passionate about it. Um, and so going to Code Palooza and seeing there were some first time speakers there. There was one workshop I went to that it was his first time.
Mhm.
And so like people, you can just go all in. And Anyway, it was a big, I don't want to say confidence boost because I can't really do anything to my confidence, but carried more weight in my confidence in my ability, but that I actually have something to share, right? Because it's um, there are very, very smart people who deliver the same information that I'll be presenting
Mhm.
in my talk. And so my thought has always been, I have nothing new to contribute. And so yeah, Code Palooza just kind of helped me, like being there, helped me see you don't have to have something new, right? And even if it's not, just because it's not new doesn't mean it's not a different take, a different
Mhm.
perspective. Um, I might say something that resonates with somebody uh, differently than if Troy Hunt said it himself, right? Um, so which is
Well,
not very
just
likely.
throw on that Australian accent, right? And
Yeah,
then we won't know the difference, right?
yeah, that's right. Well, I'm sure by the time the content is done, you'll definitely know the difference.
Right, right.
um,
No, it's funny you talk about the workshop you attended. I won't mention who it was, not to really embarrass, but it's funny because so he submitted that talk, and he was surprised that we picked it, and of course this is someone I've known for the last couple of years, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't I pick it? It's like, well, I've never spoken before. I'm apparently losing my connection to Johnny here, so I'll keep on talking while it looks like we're reconnecting with Johnny here, but. I picked him because I knew that he was you know let's see, Johnny thinks I'm freezing. Let's see here. Yeah, it's definitely oh,
there we go.
there we go. Yeah, we definitely had a little blip there. But I think it was on your side because like I was looking at the stream manager, everything was still
Huh.
going on here.
Well, interesting.
Internet,
Yeah.
yeah, these people who work in cable companies, they don't know what they're doing. So I was talking about the guy who did the workshop, and I remember he had enough he had enough of his own thought to submit it. He was surprised that he got picked, and but I talked to him like, well, I picked you because I knew you could do an awesome job of this. And what he'd done some other things, so it wasn't like he was really. It was the first time he spoke at a tech conference, but he did a lot of stuff with the startup community and everything. Um, it sure enough, going back to our conversation at the beginning about non-traditional workers, like 4 years ago, he was wait staff, right? I mean, he's new in the technology. He's setting the world on fire, and so a really good guy to know, and really smart.
Yeah.
And again, proof that you don't have. It's good to have a traditional education, but you don't have to have that, right? It's not the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, get back a little bit more to who you are, right? So you have a tech toy that you've been really enjoying recently.
tech toy that I've been really enjoying recently.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to remind me of that.
I'm gonna have to remind you of that.
Yeah.
Or anything that's been having, drawing your fancy recently. You've been playing around.
I thought you were referring to something that I've told you about.
Oh, no. No, general question.
Okay. I was like, I do? I do.
No.
No, I've been trying to get into recording and broadcasting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a YouTube channel. It's getting about as much content as my blog. So, that's not very much.
You got a couple of videos up there, though.
Yeah, I've got 3 up there now. And I actually I have one. I've recorded a few times, but I have a problem with things having to be just right. So I haven't. I'm gonna have to re-record it again. But actually, a demo, an in-depth demo. So in the talk, I give a demo of how to use of using Troy Hunt's API to look for Poland passwords. So I'm creating a YouTube video actually how to implement that, how to do the coding behind it. So playing around with OBS and learning YouTube, I've recently learned about OBS. It's actually kind of new to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've started it at my church. So last week we had our first simulcast, I guess you would call it. We have some folks that are just still kind of staying away, for various reasons regarding the pandemic. So we're trying to accommodate and broadcast that. So implemented OBS there and private YouTube stream, and so that's really what I've been playing a lot with. I don't really have any toys. I bought some model rockets.
Well, there you go.
I opened the box, right, and I recognized that they don't come pre-assembled. So they went back into the box, and then the box went off to the side. So hopefully I will muster up the motivation to build those, because I promised Matthias that we would shoot rockets in the backyard. But yeah, I'm not much with putting things together, so it feels a little daunting.
Yeah, my hard part, and actually you don't see it right now, but my hard part is just getting time to build my things I want to build. As you know, and anyone's been watching the stream long enough to see my background several times. I've been working on the Star Story. You don't see it right now because actually I am getting really close to getting it done. Only like 250 steps to go. But we're actually, my wife yesterday was like, well, when you're done, actually, I'm surprised she wants to put in the living room. Only because it's so massive. I mean, this thing it's 4 feet long and it's like 2.5 feet wide. So I mean, it's massive. And she was like, well, that's probably the best place to put it. And I was like, are you sure that's where you want to put it? Yeah, why not, right? She's like, well, you can put it with all your other toys. I'm like, they're not toys, they're models, right? But I gotta admit, last night I did so the tower is actually on there, so it's getting really close.
Yeah, which I noticed it wasn't there today.
Well, that's why I moved it out. It's hard to move, and so when I'm working on it, it takes up my whole desk, right? So I have to move it when I'm working on the components for it. But since I'm close, I think within the next week I'll have it finished. So I was like, well, let me move it out here so I don't have to take it out this door anymore. Because the entryway into the living room is a whole lot bigger, so it'll be easier to move that in there.
Yeah.
But so it's just funny when you said you open up the box, but then you saw you hit assemble it.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I bought the Legos, I knew I had to assemble it. That's part of the whole deal with Legos, right?
Sure. Well, here's what you need to do, Chad. You need to, once you get it finished, right, disassemble it, and then do a Twitch stream. Every day you build it a little bit more and more.
I actually have debated doing a Twitch stream with Legos. Because I've already got a desk set up. All I can do is mount a camera on there. I have been debating doing that. I'll wait till I'm done with this one just because the thing is so big, it takes up the whole desk. Sad part is I already have a whole nother Lego set ready to go.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
So
you don't have to tear that one apart.
Yeah, my cables won't reach over that way, but I won't have to take it apart. I've got a Y wing that's up next. It's another. I mean, it's a big old model, right? So it's another thing that'll take up a lot of space. So I have debated doing that. The funny part is I love Legos, but I don't have the creativity to do unique things with them.
Yeah,
so
I usually just build a wall.
Well, hence why I like the models, right? With the instruction books, I just go through. Okay, now I'm supposed to do this step, right? I do have a set of just regular Legos, and usually, those are things I disassemble right away because they're not worth keeping.
Yeah.
And it's usually when I'm in my, our company sometimes has half day and all day meetings. I need to spend my time doing something else while I'm listening in.
Yeah.
Although funny part is when we meet in person, the CEO brings Legos anyway. So I'm not really doing anything different than I would do, once we get back to in-person meetings.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and of course, Legos have a near and dear meaning to our company.
Yes. Yeah. They're a lot more, and we'll go into this. Some it's a little bit more personal, but there are some Legos actually do mean a lot to this company and to our founders.
Yeah.
And hence, so one of our bigger, newer projects is called Bricks, but it's because we're building upon things. There's more than just a tie to Legos on that. But
right. Yeah, it's just Legos embodies that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, so you went to school for a year for cooking. Do you enjoy cooking anymore?
I can fry a mean egg. I'll tell you what, I spent for that 1 year, it's $28,000. And here's what I got out of it. I can flip an egg without a spatula.
Okay.
And not break the yolk. Right, I can give you a perfect over easy egg, right, without flipping that, without using that spatula.
I say that's not something I can do. I don't think I've ever tried. I probably make a big mess.
So I hadn't done it at all since then. And about 2 years ago, I just thought, I wonder if I still could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out I can. So yeah, no, I don't cook very much. I cook a lot of eggs because those are easy.
Mm-hmm.
I can call takeout like no one. But didn't learn that in school. No, I learned just enough to annoy people, right? Because I know what proper cleaning habits are,
mm-hmm.
right? And so I know things like that just gnaw at me, right? I just get annoyed when I things like that, or I know what the words mean. You learn a lot of French words when you're studying cooking professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, but I much to my wife's dismay, I do not cook very much today.
Yeah, it's funny. Around my house, you didn't know until right. Sorry about that. Around my house, if I want the big meals, right, I have to cook it. It's not that my wife can't cook it. She's like, no. Well, she plays the whole, well, I'm not from this country, so I don't know how to make a turkey or what have you. I'm like, okay, well, Pilgrims weren't from this country. They figured out how to make a turkey. But actually, I enjoy cooking. Yeah, so it's fun. Sunday, I was making steaks, and over the last couple of years, I've been working on perfecting the way I cook steaks.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I do a good job. Not always. So So any, I mean, with that, any closing thoughts? I mean, you know, as we start to wrap up for the day.
I would just say that to anyone who is listening, who is thinking about speaking and to getting into the speaking game, just start submitting abstracts, because you'll be surprised. You won't be surprised at the number of rejections you get.
Yeah.
But you will be surprised at the yeses that you get. You know, when I got that acceptance to IndyCode, I was completely surprised. And I know Code PaLOusa is a blind selection process, so I was a little surprised to get selected for Code PaLOusa as well. So yeah, you know, you'd be surprised at the responses that you'll get, and even some of the rejections that I got, I was able to ask them why they rejected, and get feedback from them, which was also pretty valuable. So yeah, I would say, only closing thought, if you're interested in getting into tech and you're not already in tech, just go for it. And if you are interested in speaking and for whatever reason you feel like you aren't eligible to speak, forget about that and start submitting abstracts.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you feel like it might be a problem with being able to present, like being able to get in front of people, find a Toastmasters and practice public speaking. I don't do Toastmasters myself, but because I do have experience with public speaking,
mm-hmm.
but it is, you know, something I would recommend.
Yeah. No, I don't believe how many times I hear what, you know, try Toastmasters is a great way to get started. I hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. But awesome. Well, that was great. All right, so let's look at rating. Again, I really appreciate everyone coming out today. It's always, I've been having a lot of fun doing these interviews. Sure enough, I mean, we're, you know, after Code PaLOusa, we're going to continue doing interviews. It'll just be a little bit different. And it's not going to be 2 and 3 times a week. It's yeah, this is definitely part of what I was trying to do with this channel. Hence the, you know, the first word of our name, you know, tale, right? Telling tales about software development. So, so definitely I appreciate Johnie for joining me today. And hope everyone else, you know, again on Friday, or sorry, not Friday, on Thursday we'll have I'm never gonna pronounce his name right. Mike. I didn't even draw a blank his last name right. I can picture it, but I can't think of the name. Oh, okay. This is gonna drive me crazy till I say it. Just a second. Let's see here. Mike Unton. I don't know if I'm saying this wrong. Amundsen. It's a really great guy. I've known him for years. He's definitely on the side of those big name experts, right? That you talk about to speak of, you know. He actually, John, he'd probably be really interested. He does a lot of talking on APIs. He's actually written a couple of books about APIs. And he's considered to be one of the experts on API design. So he's a really neat guy. Just comes up from, you know, or down from Cincinnati, not even that far away. It's always, you know, we don't get him every year, but you know, it's always great when we get him in. Like I say, on Thursday, I'll, you know, have a great conversation with him. So that we're gonna raid Code Rush. You know, Mark Miller's always doing some kind of fun thing, so it's always fun to go see that. So let's go ahead and start that raid. Well, actually, I just started, so now we got the countdown here. But and again, hope everyone has a great day. And tomorrow we'll be working more on the Gremlin ORM. Made some good progress yesterday. I might make some progress tonight, but all right, see everybody.